I met my father again on the coldest day of my life, broke, ashamed, and holding my son with numb fingers. I hadn't seen him in 20 years. And yet, when I needed help the most, he simply said, "Let's get some coffee." This is the story of how we fell apart and somehow found our way back.
Before we begin this story, let me know where you are listening from in the comments below.
My name is Rachel Carter. I'm 32 years old. And what I'm about to tell you today will forever change the way you see your own family. The cold that day wasn't just in the air. It had curled itself around my spine, pressed itself into my teeth, and scraped the insides of my ribs. Chicago cold doesn't ask permission. It enters you like regret. The Jackson Red Line platform was crowded, as usual, but I had never felt more alone. The kind of alone that made noise echo differently in your ears, like you were underwater while the rest of the world moved on. I stood near the edge of the platform with Noah bundled up against my chest, his tiny arms wrapped around my neck, face buried in the crook of it. His breath was warm, soft, and rhythmic, the only constant I had left. My arms ached from holding him. He was too old to be carried, but the fatigue on his face that morning told me he needed it. Maybe I did too. My coat had a tear under the arm, and my boots had soaked through from last night's slush. I looked down, ashamed. Not for how I looked, but because I had promised myself he would never see me like this. My son deserved better. This is it, I thought. This is how I break. Just don't let him see. The train was late, because of course it was. The world has this cruel rhythm to it. When you're most desperate for things to just work, that's when the cracks show. I adjusted Noah slightly, trying to shift the numbness in my left arm. That's when I heard it. "Rachel?" A voice that punched through 20 years of silence. I turned. Slowly, I didn't want to, but my body moved anyway. Henry Carter, my father. He stood like someone trying hard not to look like they were waiting for something. A thick navy coat, military in cut, buttoned all the way to his neck. His cane was gripped tightly in his left hand, the metal tip lightly tapping the concrete. His eyes. God. His eyes. Time had done its work. His hair was grayer, thinner, his face more weathered. But those eyes hadn't changed. Still sharp, still seeing too much. "Where's your car?" he asked, as if we had just spoken yesterday. The question sliced me open. So casual, so devastating. I felt my fingers tighten around Noah's jacket. Too tight. He made a soft sound, just enough to snap me back. I swallowed. I had to sell it. My voice broke. I didn't mean it to, but shame has a way of finding the cracks. He didn't react right away, just looked. And not in the way he used to, disappointed, assessing. No, this time was different. His gaze was steady but not harsh, almost like he saw me. I lowered my head. I didn't want his pity. Then came the unexpected. "Come on," he said, stepping forward. "Let's get some coffee. My treat, Rachel." The coffee shop was warm, a contrast so stark it felt wrong. It smelled like cinnamon and burnt espresso. I found us a booth by the window while Henry ordered. Noah slid into the seat beside me and leaned into my side, already starting to nod off. I studied the fog on the window. A part of me wanted to run. Another part wanted to scream. But mostly, I just wanted someone to listen. Really listen. Henry came back with 2 coffees and a hot chocolate. He placed a napkin in front of me with a gentleness I didn't expect. We sat in silence for a while. The noise of the shop filled the space between us. "You look tired," he said finally. I didn't answer, and not just today. Tired. Life tired. I blinked. The words hit deeper than I thought they would. "Yeah," I whispered. "I guess I am." Noah stirred beside me. I put a hand on his head, absently smoothing his hair. "I lost the apartment," I said, staring at my untouched coffee. Henry didn't speak. It was Grandma Jean's, I continued. "She left it to me. But Evelyn and Marcus, they found a way to get it co-signed, make it look like I was behind on taxes. Legal trickery. They had a lawyer. I had fear. Still, he said nothing, just waited. They said if I didn't sign it over, they'd make trouble. That Noah could end up in foster care. That they knew people. Evelyn's exact words were, "Accidents happen to old men and to kids with irresponsible mothers." I didn't realize I was crying until my fingers touched my cheek. They took everything, and I let them. I was scared. I am scared. Henry exhaled, slow and shaking. He reached into his coat and pulled out a tissue, not passed it, placed it. The way someone puts down a peace offering. "Rachel," he said, "I heard you, and I believe you." I looked at him, stunned. I should have done that 20 years ago, when you first said something was wrong with Evelyn, but I was too blind, too lonely, and I failed you. My breath caught. "You didn't just fail me," I said. "You left me in a house with a woman who chipped away at me day by day, and when I tried to tell you, you called it teenage drama." He winced, but he didn't argue. "You were my dad. You were supposed to be the one who saw." Silence stretched between us. Then he said, "I'm sorry, not just because you needed me back then, but because I need you now, and I want to earn this, not as an apology, as a beginning." After the coffee, we walked back toward the station. Noah held Henry's hand now, his other hand clinging to a leftover muffin Henry had insisted he take. "You still living on the north side?" I asked cautiously. "Technically. Got a small place near the river, quiet." "Boring? You? Boring? That's new." He smiled. It was tired but real. At the platform, he bent down to Noah. "You like puzzles?" Noah nodded slowly. "You ever play chess?" "What's that?" "It's like war," Henry said with a wink. "But no one gets hurt. You just have to outthink your opponent." Noah's eyes lit up with curiosity. Henry reached into his coat and pulled out a small, worn night piece. Just one. He handed it to Noah. "This guy," he said, "doesn't move like the others. He jumps. Unexpected. Sometimes that's how you win." Noah looked up at me, then back at him. "Are you my grandpa?" Henry froze. I'd like to be, if that's okay, with you." Noah looked at me. I nodded, not trusting my voice. "Okay," he said. "But you have to teach me chess." Henry smiled. "Deal." That night, after the train, after we walked the extra 10 blocks to our building, I tucked Noah in on the couch we shared. The heat hadn't worked in 2 days. I wrapped us both in blankets and held him close. He was already half asleep when he whispered, "Is Grandpa gonna help us?" I stared into the dark. "I think he already is." My life didn't change that night. Not yet. The bills were still unpaid, the threats still loomed, but something shifted. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel entirely alone. The next morning, snow dusted the windowsill like powdered sugar, too thin to disguise the cracks in the glass. Noah was still asleep on the couch, curled into a tight little ball, hugging the night piece Henry had given him. I watched him from the kitchenette, sipping the last of our instant coffee. No milk, no sugar, just bitter like everything lately. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. My stomach clenched. Then a text. "Coffee?" 9 a.m. Same place. No signature. Didn't need one. I left Noah with Miss Darlene from 4C, an old widow who always smelled like mothballs and peppermint, but had the heart of a saint. She never asked questions. She just opened her door and smiled, as if she'd been waiting years for me to finally knock. Henry was already at the booth when I walked in. Same table, same cracked red leather. He had 2 cups on the table, one pushed slightly toward the opposite seat. There was a notebook next to his hand, pages half filled with tight handwriting. "You're early," I said. "You're late," he replied without looking up. But there was no sharpness in it, just habit. The kind of reply that once would have stung, but now felt more like a worn-out ritual. I slid into the seat. "Noah asleep?" "Yeah, with his new best friend." He smiled, only briefly. "He's a good kid," he said. "He deserves better. He deserves you, Rachel." I wanted to laugh, or cry, or run. Instead, I wrapped my hands around the warm cup. The heat felt good against my cold fingers. I hadn't realized how badly they were trembling. "Why are you really here?" I asked. "After all these years, after everything." He met my eyes. "Because I failed you once. I don't want to fail your son, too." My throat tightened. I didn't come here to cry. But then again, I hadn't come here yesterday to fall apart either. "Do you want the truth? All of it?" He nodded. "Just once." So I told him. Everything. I told him about Evelyn. how she crept into our lives after Mom died, like smoke under a door. How I wanted to like her, needed to, because she made him laugh again. But she never wanted me. She chipped away at me, Dad, little by little, comments about my hair, my weight, my attitude. How I wasn't like my mother, like that was a bad thing. His jaw twitched, but he said nothing. I told him how she started controlling my schedule, my decisions. How I went from being a teenager with dreams to a girl walking on eggshells. She controlled everything, even after I moved out. She offered to help with paperwork for the apartment when Grandma passed. She smiled and said, "Family looks out for each other." I wanted to believe her. He exhaled through his nose, hands wrapped tightly around his coffee cup. Marcus was the worst part, I continued. She used him like a scalpel. He acted like he cared. Managed the bills, checked on us. Then started moving money around. Said it was temporary. Said he was helping. I took a shaky breath. Until one day, the apartment wasn't mine anymore. My name was still there, but so was his. And the paperwork I signed? Turns out it gave him control, power of attorney. I never even read the fine print. I looked at Henry. They threatened me, Dad. Said if I made noise, if I tried to fight back, they'd make it look like I was unstable. That I had a history of depression. That CPS might take Noah. He didn't ask if it was true. He didn't interrupt. He just listened, eyes wet but steady. "You think I wanted to run to you after all this time," I said. "I didn't. But I was drowning, and Noah's all I have." He pulled something from his coat. A handkerchief, the same one, monogrammed, neatly folded. He didn't offer it like a savior. He just placed it gently on the table. "Rachel," he said, voice hoarse. I should have seen it. I should have listened. I looked at him. Really looked. "You didn't just miss it. You looked away." He flinched, finally. "I was angry at the world," he said. "Losing your mother, it hollowed me out. Evelyn filled that space, but I didn't question how quickly she moved in. I didn't want to." He leaned forward, elbows on the table. "I remember once. You came home with a busted lip. You said you fell, but your eyes told me otherwise. Evelyn said you'd been acting out." I believed her. "I remember," I whispered. He shook his head slowly. "I failed you. As a father. As a protector. I saw pieces of you falling off, and I called it growing up." We sat in silence, a heavy, grieving silence. "You always chose her," I said. "I did, and that's on me." He walked me halfway back to the apartment. Neither of us said much. At the corner, where the sidewalk turned toward home, he paused. "I know this isn't enough, but if you let me in, I can start fixing what I broke. Not just for you. For Noah, too. You think you can fix 20 years of absence with coffee and apologies?" He gave a sad smile. "No, but maybe with time and action." I didn't respond, but I didn't say no. That evening, Henry showed up with a chess set. Thought I'd give the kid his first lesson. Noah lit up. He cleared a corner of the kitchen table and sat like a soldier awaiting instructions. "You need strategy, Noah," Henry said, setting up the pieces. "And patience. 2 things the world doesn't teach you fast enough. But they can change everything." I watched from the doorway, arms crossed, heart unsure, but there was something different in the air. Noah smiled, giggled, called him Grandpa Spy. Henry laughed, a real laugh. For the first time in years, our apartment felt like it had oxygen again. I stepped into the kitchen, leaned against the counter. Henry looked up at me. "Tomorrow," he said, "I want to take you somewhere, a place safe, just to see it." Safe? Just trust me. I nodded slowly, and maybe, for the first time in decades, I meant it. The heat in our building had finally given up. By the 3rd morning, I was layering Noah with 2 sets of socks and my old college sweatshirt before sending him down the hall to Miss Darlene's. I told her we wouldn't stay long, that we were between places. She didn't ask. She just made Noah hot chocolate and taught him how to play dominoes. I went back into the apartment and sat on the floor. The silence was heavy, the kind that fills your ears when you don't even have white noise left. My body was there, but my mind was far, looping through every missed moment, every signed document, every time I second-guessed myself because Evelyn told me to. I used to love this place. Now, it felt like the walls were watching me lose. The floor creaked differently now. The air felt stiller, stale. My reflection in the window didn't look like me anymore. It looked like someone trying to be invisible. The knock on the door wasn't loud, just firm enough to say, "Open up. You can't avoid this." I opened it and wasn't surprised. Marcus. He had the same smirk he'd worn since high school. Clean shave, pressed coat, and those eyes that never looked directly at you, just slightly past, like you were something on the edge of his radar. "Rachel," he said smoothly. "Still here." "Marcus," I replied. Still pretending to be human. He laughed, a little too loud. "I came to talk. Just talk." I let him in because there was no point resisting. He already had a key to my ruin. He walked around like he still owned the place, which on paper he probably did, or at least half of it. He scanned the empty counters, the fading wallpaper. "I remember when Grandma Jean would cook pancakes on Sundays," he said, nostrils flaring in fake nostalgia. "Funny how places change, huh?" "They don't change. People poison them." He sat down at the kitchen table, uninvited, crossed one leg over the other like this was his office. "Look, Rachel, you and we've always had tension. I get it. But this drama, it's not helping anyone, especially Noah." He said Noah's name like a weapon. I stayed standing. "You've made your point, Marcus. You won. Evelyn got what she wanted. I'm out. Isn't that enough?" He tilted his head. "She wants to make sure it stays that way." There it was, the real reason. "I'm not signing anything else," I said quickly. "You got the apartment. There's nothing left to take." He leaned forward. "There's always something left, Rachel. You could fight for custody. You could get social services involved. Evelyn doesn't like variables." "I'm not a variable. I'm a mother," he smiled. "Well, she'd say you're a liability, but you already knew that." I clenched my fist so hard my nails bit into my palms. "What do you want, Marcus? Cooperation, silence, peace? Threats?" He shrugged. "Depends on how loud you plan to be." He stood, adjusted his coat. "Oh, and she told me to remind you, accidents happen, especially to people who don't listen." I followed him to the door. "If you come near Noah again, I swear." He raised both hands. "Relax. Just a friendly visit. Be smart, Rachel." He walked away like nothing happened, but something did. I locked the door behind him and leaned against it, breathing shallow, my heart pounding in my ears. I looked down and realized I was still shaking. My son was playing dominoes 2 doors down, while his future was being threatened by people who once called themselves family. Henry showed up an hour later. I hadn't called. I didn't need to. He said he was just checking in, but I think he felt it, like veterans sense when a bomb's about to go off. He stepped in, looked around, and said nothing. He just took in the silence, the tension, the weight in the room. "I had a visitor," I said. He sat slowly at the table. "Marcus?" I nodded. I didn't tell him everything. I didn't have to. Henry reached into his coat pocket. This time, not a handkerchief. A folded photo. It was from his service days. Him and a group of 4 men, all dressed in fatigues, standing beside a truck with bullet holes in the side. "Meet the cavalry," he said. He pointed them out. Solomon, tech and surveillance. Andre, recon. David, logistics. And Emilio, deep cover. We served together in some of the worst places on earth. They owe me. And I owe you. I blinked. "You're serious." "I called them last night, told them I need eyes and ears, and backup." I sat slowly. "What are you planning?" Henry looked at me and said, "This isn't just family business anymore. It's a mission. I'm going to bring them down." There was a quiet resolve in his voice. No dramatics, no movie speech. Just a man who had made a decision and wouldn't be turning back. That evening, Henry stayed. He raided my fridge and cabinets, pulling together onions, lentils, canned tomatoes. Somehow, he made stew taste like comfort. He set the table like it mattered. Napkins folded, silverware placed properly. Like he was reminding me what dignity looked like. After dinner, he took Noah aside with the chessboard. "You need strategy, Noah," he said, setting up the pieces. "And patience. 2 things the world doesn't teach you fast enough. But they can change everything." Noah nodded. His face was serious. Henry tapped the knight. This one moves differently. It surprises the others. Noah grinned. Like me? Henry smiled. Exactly. I watched from the doorway. For the first time, I saw Noah looking at someone like he wanted to be them. And for the first time in a long time, I saw a father who was trying. Later, as I tucked Noah into the couch, he whispered, "Are we gonna be okay, Mom?" I kissed his forehead. "We will be, because we're not alone anymore." He curled up, knife in hand, and I sat in the kitchen with Henry, planning our next move. We wrote down names, timelines, connections. Henry's military mind started turning, calculating risks, drawing patterns. I watched as he came alive, not just as a father, but as a soldier with a mission. "This is about more than property," he said. "They manipulated a grieving child, stole a home, used the system like a weapon. They've built a fortress out of lies. We're going to find the cracks." I stared at him. "What if we lose?" He looked at me, steady. "Then we lose trying. Together." It wasn't a guarantee. It was better. Henry didn't leave that night. He said the couch was fine, but I noticed the way he checked the locks 3 times before sitting down. The way he looked out the window every half hour, scanning the street below as if expecting movement in the shadows. He was on high alert. Like something in him had reawakened. A switch flipped the second Marcus stepped back into our lives with threats in his pocket. The morning air bit hard. It slipped under the windowsills and settled into the floorboards. I made coffee with the last scoop we had. Henry was already up, dressed, and seated at the table with his notebook open, a pencil in hand. He was sketching something that looked like a flow chart with names and arrows and little question marks. "What is that?" I asked. "Battle map." I blinked. I thought this was a legal issue. It is? And like any battlefield, it's about controlling information, allies, timing, and knowing your opponent's weakness. He pointed at a name I recognized, Victor. Evelyn's lawyer. I served with a guy who worked 3 years at the courthouse as a records analyst. He owes me a favor. He'll get us what we need on Victor. Past cases, disciplinary reports, possible skeletons. You're serious? I've never been more serious. He made us breakfast, just toast and eggs, but somehow it tasted like something real. Noah sat quietly, watching Henry move around the kitchen like he'd lived here his whole life. "Do you have a secret base?" Noah asked. Henry chuckled. "Not anymore, but I have something close." He pulled a folded paper from his pocket. An address, just an intersection and a name. Belmont Storage, Unit 31B. "I want you to see it," he said, turning to me. "Today." We dropped Noah with Ms. Darlene again. He kissed me on the cheek and whispered, "Learn cool spy stuff." Henry smiled at that. The drive across town was quiet. I watched buildings blur past while Henry's fingers tapped a rhythm on the steering wheel. It was the same rhythm he used to drum on the table during Sunday dinners when I was a kid. That steady beat used to annoy me. Now it was oddly comforting. Belmont Storage was an unremarkable building. Brick, rusted signage. The kind of place no one looked at twice. Inside, he punched in a code and opened the door to Unit 31B. It was not what I expected. Maps, files, laptops. A fold-out table with a military-issued duffel bag. A bulletin board covered in newspaper clippings and photos. "This is where I plan," he said. "I don't keep things like this at home." I stepped inside slowly, letting it all sink in. "You've done this before," he nodded. "In different countries, under different flags. But this is personal." He handed me a folder. Evelyn has 4 shell companies under her name. Marcus is listed as CFO of 2. They've funneled money through dummy accounts for years. Enough to draw your attention. We just need the right eyes looking. I flipped through the pages. "How long have you been gathering this?" "Since I saw your face on that platform." I looked up at him. "You don't waste time." "No," he said. "Because they're already planning their next move. And this time, we're ahead." Back at the apartment, Noah was waiting with a list of chess questions and a grin too big for his face. Henry took him to the table and set up the board again. "This piece," he said, pointing to the bishop, "moves diagonally. It cuts through the field. Quiet, fast. You never see it coming." Noah's eyes widened. "Like a ninja?" "Exactly." They played 3 rounds. Noah lost all of them but never stopped smiling. Then Henry did something I didn't expect. He leaned forward and said, "You know what makes a great player, Noah? Not how many pieces you take, but how well you protect the ones that matter." Noah blinked, thoughtful. I swallowed hard. That night, Henry pulled me aside. "I've already contacted Andre. He'll be here in 2 days. Solomon's running background checks. Emilio's in Florida, but he's monitoring Evelyn's public records." "And the law?" I asked. "We can't just spy on them." "I'm not breaking the law. I'm documenting behavior, gathering patterns. If the courts won't listen to emotion, they'll listen to data." He hesitated. "There's something else." "What?" "I need you to be okay with one thing. Marcus may not go down with Evelyn, but we need him to believe he will. Pressure creates fracture." I nodded slowly. He used my fear. Use his. Henry didn't smile, but he nodded. Later, I tucked Noah in. He looked up at me and said, "Grandpa taught me how to protect the king." "You're my king," I whispered. He held up the night piece again. "Then I'll be this guy." "You already are." I turned off the lamp and walked into the kitchen. Henry was there, scribbling something down in his notebook. He looked up. "I made a vow once," he said, "to protect this country. Then I made another one, to never let family fall apart on my watch again. I'm keeping both." I nodded. For the first time in years, I believed him. We moved out that night. No fanfare, no tears. Just quiet steps down a frozen stairwell with a duffel bag and a backpack slung over my shoulder. Noah half asleep against my side. Henry had already loaded the chessboard and the night piece into the glove compartment. The rest of our lives fit in one trunk. The safe house wasn't a bunker or some high-tech hideout. It was a modest second-floor apartment tucked between a laundromat and an old dentist's office, just far enough from Evelyn's orbit to be invisible. Henry had signed the lease under a different name, prepaid 6 months. Utilities set up, groceries already stocked. He even brought curtains. Noah stood in the middle of the living room, eyes wide. "Is this our new house?" "For now," I said. "It's safe." He turned to Henry. "Does this mean we're spies now?" Henry knelt beside him, eyes soft. "No, son, it means we're free." The next morning, I woke to the smell of bacon and the sound of Henry humming a tune I hadn't heard in years. Some old Sinatra song he used to play during Sunday cleanups. I walked into the kitchen to find him scrambling eggs, wearing an apron that said "Best Grandpa in the Galaxy." Where he found it, I didn't ask. "Did you sleep at all?" I asked. "Not much. Slept enough." He glanced at me. "You look better today." "I feel less like falling apart." "Then breakfast is working." He didn't start the day with a debrief or a plan. He started it by being there, by making sure Noah had pancakes shaped like spaceships, by helping me fix the loose cabinet door instead of launching into military tactics, by sitting on the floor with Noah after breakfast and building a Lego tower that defied gravity and logic. And when I least expected it, when I wasn't watching, he took my coat and sewed the torn lining shut. Henry Carter was fighting a war, yes, but not with fists. He was winning my trust with breakfast. That afternoon, the doorbell rang twice. Short, sharp, coded. Solomon. He looked nothing like I remembered from the one photo Henry showed me. He was stockier now, with deep lines in his face and a silver ring in one ear. His voice was warm, though, like radio static tuned just right. He hugged Henry like a brother and nodded at me. "You must be the reason he finally called us in," he said. I nodded. "Guess so." He unpacked his laptop and gear within minutes. Soon our coffee table was covered in wires, monitors, and a device that looked suspiciously like it belonged in a spy movie. "I'm sweeping for bugs first," he said. "Paranoia's just another word for experience." By evening, we had Andre too. He arrived on a black motorcycle, helmet under one arm, trench coat trailing behind him like a cape. He didn't speak much, just shook Henry's hand, nodded once at me, and immediately began scoping out the windows, the fire escape, the alley. "He's quiet," I whispered. "He's listening," Henry said. "Always is." That night, we all sat at the kitchen table. Me, Henry, Solomon, Andre, while Noah colored dinosaurs at the end of the table, occasionally chiming in with opinions about trapdoors and invisible lasers. Henry stood and addressed us like we were soldiers. "I need to buy back the time I lost with my daughter. This is my chance to be a father. I need you to cover my 6. Solomon raised his cup. Always. Andre nodded. What's the op called? Henry looked at me, then back at them. Operation Homefront. We broke the job into layers. Solomon would monitor financial activity. He pulled up real-time access to shell companies, email dumps, and social media posts Evelyn thought she'd deleted years ago. Andre took surveillance, cameras on the street, patterns of movement, visitors to Evelyn's office. He tracked who came and went from the law firm, like clockwork. Henry handled communication. He'd be the liaison between Marcus and the rest of the world. His military background gave him a cold efficiency, but his heart never left the room. And me? I documented everything. I started a notebook, pages and pages of memories, receipts, emails, times Evelyn belittled me in front of Noah, dates Marcus logged into the property account without telling me. Moments I'd shoved down now became evidence. I wasn't just a victim anymore. I was building my own case. Noah never asked why there were cameras in the living room now, or why Henry had to take a work call on the balcony while speaking in clipped code. He just knew something had changed. He didn't flinch when Solomon taught him how to encrypt a file. He didn't question why Andre checked under the car before we drove anywhere. And when Henry taught him how the rook and knight could work together on the board, Noah looked up and said, "Like us, right? We protect each other." "Exactly," Henry said. "Exactly right." That night, after Noah went to bed, I sat beside Henry on the sofa. "You didn't have to do all this." "I did." "Why?" He turned to me. "Because I failed you once. And when you showed up on that platform, holding your son like a shield, I saw the second chance I never thought I'd get. I won't waste it." We sat in silence for a while. "Do you think this will work?" I asked. Henry looked at me, eyes steady. "I think we just changed the rules of the game." Henry had a rule: no emotion in the field. That's what he called it now. Our lives, the apartment, the files. The field, he said, it kept him sharp. But one night, as we stared at the board together, our notes, our lists, our timeline, he just stopped, paused. Then he reached across the table and held my hand. Not forcefully, not to make a point. Just held it. Like maybe it was the first time he realized I was real and here and still fighting. "I almost lost you again," he whispered. "I won't let history repeat itself." I wanted to stay strong, but that sentence cracked something open. I felt my breath catch, felt the truth in his words settle into my bones. I looked at our war room, a safe house apartment, chess pieces mixed with hard drives, scribbled post-its stuck to the fridge. And I realized this wasn't just revenge. It was redemption. The next day, Andre followed Marcus from his office to a gym to a wine bar in River North. There, Marcus met with a woman Solomon ID'd as one of Evelyn's fixers, someone who specializes in making problems disappear. She'd shown up in 3 other cases tied to housing disputes and tax seizures. Always behind the curtain, always gone before the smoke cleared. Andre got photos, clean, sharp, enough to raise serious questions. Solomon dug deeper. Within 6 hours, he had copies of texts Marcus had deleted from a cloud backup he didn't know he still had access to. One read, "She's cracking. If we push now, she'll sign anything. Just need leverage." Another, Henry sniffing around. "We may need to escalate." Escalate. Henry's jaw tensed when he read it. His hands, usually steady, gripped the edge of the table until his knuckles turned white. "This ends," he said. That night, Henry gathered us in the living room. No chessboard, no pancakes. Just files, blue light from the monitors, and a sense that something was shifting. "This is it," he said. "The pressure point." He slid a printed photo onto the table, Marcus, blurry, mid-handshake with the fixer. Marcus is panicking, and Evelyn's tightening her grip. That's when people slip. "We're going to give Marcus a reason to do exactly that." I leaned forward. "What kind of reason?" Henry looked at me, his eyes darker than usual. "We show him the truth, and then we let him choose." We invited Marcus to the safe house. I hadn't seen him look nervous before, not truly. But this time, he walked in like he expected to find a trap, eyes scanning every corner, jaw tight. Evelyn's golden boy didn't shine so brightly up close. "You're living here," he said, glancing around the apartment. For now, I answered. He looked at Henry, who stood in the corner, arms crossed, unmoving. I see you brought the cavalry. No, I said. I brought the truth. Henry hit play on a recording. Evelyn's voice filled the room, clear and cold. She sounded smug, relaxed. Marcus is useful for now. Once the apartment's out of her hands, we don't need him. We cut him loose. He'll fold like he always does. Silence. Marcus stared at the speaker. Then again, then at me. What is this? She said that 3 weeks ago, Henry said. We have the timestamp, the source, it's real. She wouldn't. She did, I added. And she will. We didn't pressure him. We didn't beg. We just let him sit with it. After a long silence, he muttered, She told me you were manipulating me, that you were trying to break the family apart. She is the one breaking it apart, I said, calmer than I felt. And you've helped her. His jaw clenched. She took me in, he said. After my dad died, I owed her everything. No, Henry interrupted. You owed her love, not loyalty without conscience. That hit. I saw it. Marcus stood and paced, back and forth, like his brain couldn't hold it all at once. He looked younger than I'd ever seen him, like a boy trying to figure out where he lost control. He sank onto the couch. She said if I just followed orders, she'd leave me part of the property, he said. Said I'd finally get what I deserved. And now, I asked? His voice dropped. Now I think she'll bury me the second I'm not useful. He rubbed his face, then looked at me. I have the files. From the condo transfer, emails, texts. I can prove she pressured you. I just didn't want to choose sides. You already did, I said. He looked at me. You still hate me? I was quiet. Then, I don't know. But I won't let you near Noah again unless you do the right thing. He nodded slowly. That's fair. He left with a thumb drive. Said he needed a day to get everything together. I watched him walk away and felt nothing. No hope. No closure. Just a void where trust used to live. We didn't expect anything. But 26 hours later, he returned. His eyes were bloodshot, shoulders slumped. But he had everything. The drive, the printed emails, financial records, recorded calls, even a sworn affidavit from one of Evelyn's former assistants. Everything Evelyn's done, he said. It's all there. And I made backups. He looked at me. I want to make it right. I took the drive. You don't get to be part of our lives again, but you get to be honest. He nodded. Don't thank me, he said. Just take her down. Henry waited until Marcus left before speaking. We just turned their inside man, Solomon added. And we have a legal trail now. Enough to trigger investigations. Andre pulled up the building's security feed. They're going to feel the walls closing in. He showed us Evelyn pacing in her office, phone to ear, face red, tension coiling like a cornered animal. That night, I sat on the fire escape with Henry. I still don't trust him, I said. You don't have to, he answered. You just have to win. I looked at the street below. For once, I didn't feel hunted. I felt ready. Do you think she knows? I asked. She will. He handed me a folder. Inside, a plan, a time, a courtroom. We'd trigger everything with one final play. I nodded. Let's finish this. Henry didn't smile, but he stood, and I followed. The night before it all went down, I couldn't sleep. Noah was curled up next to me, breathing slow and even, clutching his night piece in one hand, and Henry's chessboard folded beneath his pillow like a shield. I lay there, eyes open in the dark, watching the ceiling, trying to breathe past the weight in my chest. Tomorrow, everything we'd built would be tested. Every file, every email, every lie they'd told, every humiliation I'd swallowed. It would all be on the line, and I was terrified. Terrified of losing. Terrified of being wrong. Terrified that even if we won, it wouldn't be enough to erase what we'd lost. At 3:16 a.m., Henry knocked gently on my door. You up? I didn't answer, just opened the door. He stood in his old marine hoodie, 2 mugs in hand. Warm milk, he said. No whiskey this time. We sat on the balcony, wrapped in silence. Chicago's skyline blinked like a distant threat. Or maybe a promise. She'll never see it coming, Henry finally said. She doesn't believe she can lose, I whispered. She's never gone up against the truth before. I sipped. You scared? Terrified, he said, and for once, didn't pretend otherwise. The sting was simple in theory, surgical in execution. Solomon created a fake legal offer, a transfer document from a dummy shell company offering to buy the apartment building at a premium. The twist? The deal would only go through if Rachel signed a full withdrawal from all property and civil claims. It was bait, carefully calculated bait. The offer included details Evelyn couldn't resist: a quick closing window, undisclosed investors with international clout, and a huge profit margin. Solomon embedded metadata in the document that would tag its opening, forward activity, and timestamp signatures. Andre set up digital surveillance outside Evelyn's law office. Henry made one phone call to an old friend in internal affairs. We waited. Evelyn took the bait within 24 hours. She sent an invitation, a private sit-down. No lawyers, no drama, just us. Like old times, she said. Like old times. The audacity made my skin crawl. The morning of the sting, Henry drove me to her office in silence. Before I stepped out, he grabbed my wrist gently. Keep your back straight, he said. You're walking in like a pawn. You walk out like a queen. I gave him the faintest smile. And if I stumble? You won't, he said. But if you do, I'll be right behind you. Evelyn's office looked exactly as I remembered. Pristine, expensive, cold. She stood to greet me, all silk and polish. Her smile stretched like plastic wrap. Rachel, she said. You look tired, but better. Domestic life suits you. I sat down, my heart calm in a way that surprised me. I read your offer, I said. Seems generous. Generosity is my nature, she said, almost sweetly. All I want is for everyone to move on. Start fresh. No courts, no headlines. Just a clean ending. She slid the fake contract across the desk. You sign this, she continued. You get 10% of the sale. I get peace. Henry goes back to whatever war story he was writing. You and Noah disappear into some little suburb. Everyone wins. I tilted my head. And Marcus. She waved it off. Marcus made his choice. He's become a liability. I'll deal with him. That moment told me everything. She had no remorse, no doubt. She truly believed she was untouchable. You're getting older, Rachel, she added, her voice softening. Don't you want stability, safety? You've never had a knack for chaos. It eats women like you alive. I didn't respond. I reached into my coat pocket and pulled out the pendant. The night. Noah's little chess piece, now strung onto a necklace. She sneered. Clinging to childhood? How quaint. No, I said. This one's just a reminder. Of what? She asked, bored. That sometimes, I said, placing it gently on the table. The smallest piece takes down the queen. Before she could answer, the office door opened. 2 plainclothes officers stepped inside. Evelyn Carter, the taller one, said, We have a warrant for your arrest. She stood so fast her chair toppled over. Excuse me? This is a private meeting. You have no jurisdiction here. Henry entered behind them, calm and unshakable. Actually, he said, handing over documentation. They do. He stepped toward her slowly. You're under investigation for conspiracy to commit fraud, coercion, witness tampering, and illegal asset seizure. We have audio, digital evidence, signed testimony, and financial trails linking you to 4 illegal property transfers in the last 5 years. I want a lawyer, she snapped. You'll need one, Henry replied, but not today. The officers cuffed her. Evelyn turned to me. You did this. No, I said. You did. She lunged once. The officers held her back. Everything I built, you'll ruin it all. It was never yours to build, I said. It was stolen. And now you'll pay. The fallout was immediate. News broke within hours. Evelyn Carter, one of Chicago's most connected real estate brokers, was facing multiple felony charges. Her partner, Victor, was taken into custody shortly after for drafting and submitting fraudulent documents. Marcus's cooperation was granted immunity. His testimony became the key to unlocking the larger case, tying Evelyn to a network of predatory real estate practices and falsified ownership transfers. The apartment building, frozen in probate. My grandmother's deed reinstated in pending court. It wasn't just a victory, it was justice. Back at the safe house, the team celebrated. Solomon uncorked cheap champagne. Andre laughed for the first time since I'd met him. Henry picked Noah up and spun him in a slow circle while my son giggled loud and free. But me, I stood outside on the fire escape, silent, still. The weight of it all hadn't lifted yet. Not fully. Not because I doubted the outcome, but because winning didn't undo years of damage. It didn't bring back trust or lost time or erase the sound of Evelyn's voice echoing in my head. But it did give me something I hadn't had in years. Breath. Noah came to my room late that night. He crawled into bed beside me without a word, just curled into my side like always. "Did we win?" he asked. I kissed the top of his head. "We did," I whispered. "And it's not over yet. But we just took their queen." He held up the knight, still looped around my neck. "This guy's tough," he said sleepily. "He jumps funny, but he never stops." I smiled. "Just like us." The courthouse smelled like dust and old paper. It was one of those early spring mornings where the sun pretended to be warm, but the wind still bit through your coat. Henry parked 2 blocks away, said it was habit. Never pull up to the front door when you're walking into a war zone. He carried the files, I carried the weight. Inside, everything felt too big. The vaulted ceilings, the stone floors, the echo of hard shoes on marble. But Henry walked beside me, and with every step, I remembered who I was now. Not the daughter Evelyn erased, not the girl Marcus manipulated, not the woman who signed away her voice to survive. I was Rachel Carter, and I was about to reclaim everything they tried to steal. Courtroom 412 was smaller than I imagined. Almost intimate, no grand theatrics, just wood-paneled walls, a stern-looking judge, and the sound of papers shuffling like whispers. Evelyn sat 2 rows ahead, flanked by 2 lawyers I didn't recognize. She looked thinner, pale. Her hands, once steady and calculating, fidgeted against the polished table. When our eyes met, she didn't blink. But she didn't smirk either. She looked exactly like what she was. Exposed. Marcus arrived moments before the hearing started. He didn't sit near her, didn't look at her. He found a seat on our side of the aisle, 3 rows back. Silent. Alone. I didn't speak to him, not yet. The DA opened with a motion to freeze all assets pending further investigation into fraudulent transfers, abuse of authority, and coercion. The judge, a woman in her 60s with tired eyes and a no-nonsense tone, approved it without hesitation. Then came the testimonies. They read aloud Evelyn's own emails, played the recording of her calling Marcus useful until he folds. Laid out the property trail like crime scene footprints. Each detail was like a weight lifted off my chest. Not just because it proved she lied, but because for once, someone else was listening. My voice trembled only once, when I said Noah's name. Everything else came out clean. Facts, evidence, dates, receipts. Evelyn's lawyer objected once, something about emotional bias, but the judge waved it off. "This court finds ample grounds to proceed with a full civil inquiry," she said. "Effective immediately, all disputed properties, financial accounts, and contractual agreements involving Ms. Carter and Ms. Bennett are placed under federal review." I didn't realize I'd been holding my breath until Henry squeezed my hand. Outside, everything felt louder, brighter. I wasn't used to feeling light. People passed us on the sidewalk, loud, laughing, rushing toward their lives. Mine was just beginning again. Henry turned to me. "You did it." "No," I said. "We did." He smiled. Semper Fi. Marcus found me in the atrium an hour later. I was alone, sipping burnt coffee from a vending machine cup, staring at nothing. He stood there for 8 while before speaking. "I didn't think you'd show." "I wasn't sure you would either," I said. He looked thinner, too. Less polished, less protected. "I gave them everything," he said. "Emails, recordings, even her journals. I know. I wanted you to know it wasn't just about protecting myself." I met his eyes. "I believe that. But it doesn't change what happened." He nodded slowly. "I never hated you, Rachel. I just didn't know how to not follow her." I swallowed hard. "I hope you find your path, Marcus," I said. "But it won't be walking beside ours." He looked down. Not in shame, but maybe in understanding. And then he left. That night, Henry made spaghetti. The real kind, with herbs and slow-cooked sauce. Noah helped by shredding cheese and licking the spoon. The apartment was filled with music, not loud, just enough to remind us we were alive. After dinner, Noah asked, "Does this mean we get to go back?" "To the old apartment?" I asked. He shook his head. "No, to being happy." I pulled him into my lap. "We're already there, baby." He leaned his head against my chest. I could feel his breath, steady and calm. No tension in his shoulders, no questions in his voice, just peace. A week later, the building was officially removed from Evelyn's name. The court restored the original deed to Grandma Jean's trust. And I was named sole heir. The locks were changed. The poison was gone. I walked through the front door alone that first day. Noah stayed with Henry. I wanted the silence. I wanted to see what was left of the place they'd tried to gut. The wallpaper still peeled near the radiator. The floor creaked the same way in the hallway. The living room window stuck halfway when I tried to lift it. But the bones were strong. And now they were mine. In the corner of the living room, I found something I didn't expect. A shoebox. Old, worn, taped shut. Inside, Polaroids of Grandma Jean, my mother, me as a toddler, smiling with a spoon in my mouth, a faded birthday card written in Grandma's neat cursive. "No matter where you go, this home goes with you." I sat on the floor and cried, not because I was broken, but because I was healing. That night, I lit a candle in the kitchen, not for mourning, for memory. Then I opened the windows wide and let the air flood in. Fresh, cold, real. Justice didn't bring closure, but it brought truth. And that was enough. 1 year. That's how long it took for the dust to settle. The media faded quickly. Evelyn's name became a whisper, a cautionary tale in real estate forums and Sunday brunch gossip. Victor pled out. Marcus disappeared to another state. I never asked where. The apartment was mine again, not just legally, but spiritually. And I was no longer afraid to claim it. We didn't move back in right away. There were repairs to make. Plumbing, windows, the battered kitchen tiles. But I needed the time, the space, to choose what parts of the past I wanted to bring forward. Henry paid for most of the renovation without saying a word. He just handed me a check one morning with a shrug. It's not charity, it's redemption. Noah chose the color of the living room walls, stormy blue, like the lake in winter. Strong but calm, he said. That was Noah now, quieter but rooted. Every night he played chess with Henry or watched documentaries about strategy, history, and resilience. He'd grown into a boy who didn't ask for attention, just respect. One night I caught him writing in a little leather journal Henry had given him. When I asked what he was writing, he simply said, "Plans." I believed him. My new job came through a friend of Solomon's, nonprofit work helping low-income tenants navigate housing disputes. The irony wasn't lost on me. I went from victim to advocate, sometimes staring down the same tactics that once stripped me of everything. Now I knew where to press. "You don't hesitate anymore," my boss said once. "You've got that fire in your voice." "I burned down my old life to find it," I replied. It was hard work, long hours, brutal stories, moments of bureaucratic dead ends. But every time I helped a mother keep her home, or a grandmother fight off a scam, something inside me healed a little more. Sometimes I brought Noah to the office. He'd sit in the corner with a book or help sort flyers. The other volunteers adored him. One day, I heard him explain to someone, "My mom helps people who are about to lose their homes, but she always wins." I didn't always win, but in his eyes, I did. In our new apartment, just a few blocks from the original, I hung a photo in the living room. It wasn't of Evelyn or Marcus, or even me. It was Noah and Henry. They sat at the small chessboard on our balcony, both laughing mid-move, sunlight pouring in across the table. Noah's hand hovered above the night. It was my favorite picture in the world, because it showed something I never thought I'd see again. Peace. Henry became a part of our daily life, not in a loud way, but like an old tree growing quietly in the backyard. Every weekend, he took Noah to the park, or helped him build models, or taught him Morse code. Sometimes they disappear for hours, come back with stories about spy missions and hidden codes. Once, I found a note in the fridge. Operation Broccoli completed. Target consumed. It made me laugh harder than I had in years. One morning, I got a letter, thick envelope, elegant handwriting, from Evelyn. She was still awaiting sentencing, but had been moved to a minimum security facility. Inside the letter, she asked to meet. One final conversation. Henry offered to go in my place. He even wrote out a list of polite refusals, citing emotional distance, legal boundaries, all the standard deflections. But I said yes, not because she deserved it, but because I did. We met in the visitation room, no handcuffs, no guards hovering, just two women with too much history and not enough future. Evelyn looked older, not just physically. Something in her posture had folded. The woman who once towered over me like a marble statue now sat like a fading photograph. I wanted to see your eyes, she said. To know if you hated me. I don't, I said. She blinked, surprised. Why not? Because hate is a rope, I said, and I finally cut it. She looked down, fidgeted with the edge of her sleeve. I thought I was saving the family, she murmured. You saved a name, Evelyn, not the people inside it. We sat in silence, then I stood. I forgive you, I said quietly. Not for you, for me. Your bitterness ends here, with me, so it won't follow Noah. She didn't cry. That would have required softness, but something in her face loosened. As I walked away, I felt lighter than I had in years. That night, Henry poured 2 glasses of wine, and we sat on the balcony, watching city lights flicker like Morse code. You did the hard thing, he said. So did you. We make a good team, huh? I smiled. Late bloomers, but yeah. He pulled out a folder and handed it to me. Inside, paperwork for a small foundation, his name, my name, and a mission statement. Operation Second Watch, a non-profit offering legal and emotional support to veterans, helping their children through crisis. Started with me and you, he said. Might as well keep it going. I nodded, tears prickling. Not because I was sad, but because this time I had something worth protecting. And people who would stand with me to protect it. Spring came early the following year. You could feel it in the way the wind lost its bite, how the sun lingered a little longer each afternoon. The streets of Chicago slowly filled with laughter again, kids in parks, baristas flirting over espresso shots, people living like the worst had already passed. For us, it had. Noah turned 10 that March. He didn't ask for toys or a party. Instead, he looked at Henry and said, "Do you think I'm ready to play in a real tournament?" Henry just grinned. "Only one way to find out, soldier." And that's how we found ourselves in a crowded high school gym on a Saturday morning, surrounded by chessboards, buzzing lights, and nervous parents clutching thermoses like lifelines. Noah wore a blazer too big for him and a lapel pin shaped like a knight. It had been Henry's, a gift from a fellow officer long ago. Now it was Noah's lucky charm. He won 2 matches, lost the third, then came back in the fourth with a grin so wide it looked like it might split his face. When he got his bronze medal, he didn't look at the crowd. He looked at us, at me. And I knew it wasn't about the medal. It was about who had been there to watch him earn it. Back at home, I took the medal and hung it on the wall beside that photo of Henry and Noah playing chess on the balcony. Above it, I added a simple plaque: strategy, strength, second chances. Henry cried when he saw it. He didn't say much, just hugged me longer than usual. That night, he sat out on the balcony alone for a while, just sipping tea and watching the city lights. Later, he left a sticky note on my desk. "Thank you for letting me become the man I should have been." He still moved slowly some mornings. War leaves damage you don't always see, on the body, on the soul. But his smile came easier now. His jokes were softer, warmer. And every night before Noah went to bed, he tucked him in with the same words: "You are brave, you are loved, you are never alone." The nonprofit, Operation Second Watch, grew faster than any of us expected. Solomon handled the logistics. Andre managed outreach. I oversaw the client side of things, mostly working with mothers, daughters, and veterans trying to reconnect with estranged families. Henry became the face of it all. At first, he resisted. "I'm no hero," he'd mutter, but eventually he came around. He gave interviews, spoke at schools, wrote a blog that went modestly viral, How to Be a Father After You Weren't. He never blamed Evelyn publicly. He never needed to. People recognized truth when they saw it in someone's eyes. Our office was small, bare walls, second-hand chairs, too many coffee mugs. But the stories that passed through its doors were heavy. Fathers learning how to speak to sons. Women navigating trauma with strength instead of shame. Children hugging parents they once feared they'd lost forever. Sometimes I'd catch Henry sitting in the corner, after a session, just staring out the window with a look I couldn't quite name. Maybe it was grief, maybe peace, maybe both. One young veteran broke down in Henry's arms after reconnecting with the daughter he abandoned at birth. "She called me Dad," he sobbed. She actually said it. Henry just held him and whispered, "That word is the hardest and holiest you'll ever earn. Keep earning it." One summer evening, we were all at Grant Park. Noah had just finished his last tournament of the season and placed second. He took the loss like a professional, shook hands, smiled, and asked the winner for tips. "That's how you win the long game," Henry whispered to me. We walked through the park at golden hour. I watched Noah race ahead, arms outstretched like wings, his shadow long on the grass. Henry and I followed behind, side by side. No rush, no need to fill the silence. Sometimes peace is just walking next to someone who stayed. "Do you ever think about the past?" I asked. Henry nodded. "Only when I want to remember how far we've come." We paused at a bench. I reached into my bag and pulled out something small, a new key. "To what?" he asked. "Our new home," I said. "The three of us." He blinked, caught off guard. Then a soft smile formed. "You sure?" I nodded. "You rebuilt us. You belong in what we build next." Our new place wasn't fancy. Just 2 bedrooms, a little garden patch, and a back porch that creaked like memory. But it was ours, fully, completely, honestly. On the first night, we didn't unpack. We just sat on the porch, watching the stars blink on, one by one. Noah fell asleep across Henry's lap. I watched them both, heart so full it felt too big for my chest. There was no music, no party, no victory parade, just the sound of wind in the trees, and peace. The next morning, Noah ran through the house, naming each corner like a battlefield strategist. "This is the library," he said, pointing at a bookshelf. "That's the command center." He pointed at the kitchen. "And this is the war room." He pointed at the table where we would eat every meal together from now on. Henry just chuckled. "Every general needs a stronghold." I kissed Noah's forehead. "And every stronghold needs love to keep it standing." Some nights, I still write in my journal. Not to vent anymore, not to survive, but to remember, to trace the road behind me and realize it didn't end in fire. It led here, to a quiet, sacred kind of joy. I wrote this on a page marked with Henry's handwriting. Just a scribble, really, but I kept it tucked in for months. A good father shows up. Even if it takes him 20 years. He did, and so did I. We both came back from our own wars. Different battles, same scars. But here we are, alive, together, at peace. There was no final confrontation, no dramatic last words. Just quiet choices, made in silence, out of love. Revenge didn't come in the form of fire or fury. It came when I broke the cycle, when I chose healing over hate. My son sleeps peacefully now. My father drinks tea with steady hands. And me? I finally stopped bracing for the next blow. Sometimes, the strongest revenge is simply choosing to live well. If this story found a place in you, if it reminded you of someone you lost, someone you forgave, or someone you're still trying to become, leave me a line below. Tell me what your second chance would look like. I'm listening. Rachel.